afternoon, District 19 Toastmasters. It's been a true pleasure to have you all in our sessions today to learn a little bit and something different from each of our three tracks: leadership, communications, and the Toastmasters way. We are extremely lucky and extremely fortunate to have our keynote speaker here with us today. In 2018, our speaker presented a very similar presentation to this at the first ever District 19 Fall Huddle. And a few mere months later, in April of 2019, presented a speech which qualified him for the International Speech Contest, making him District 19's International Speech Contest winner. Presenting the 5 languages of appreciation, it is my pleasure to welcome Justin Futrell.
Thank you very much for the kind words and introduction. I challenge you to think back to a time when you went above and beyond to accomplish something. Whether that was a project at work or you gave it your all to take care of someone or something, or maybe it was at home and you did a house project, and the reward, the fulfillment for being noticed of what you have done was just not what you were hoping for. Do you have a moment in mind? When it comes to the languages of appreciation, the most important thing is to think about who the person is and what they want to be feeling. Let me give you an example. Just yesterday, I moved a ton of gravel from the driveway to the strip between the yard and the driveway itself, right? Literally a ton, 2,000 pounds of gravel, probably 50 buckets full. And I finished, I go inside and I said, Ellie, my girlfriend, Ellie, look out the front door. She stops what she's doing. She looks out the door and says, that's great. I'm glad you got it done. And then went back to what she was doing. Yeah, I mumbled. That's great. In that moment, I wanted to feel more. I wanted a hug, a high five. I wanted something more than just good job. We're going to expand on how we can appreciate others better and more effectively today. If you guys don't mind, to make this easier, please turn on your cameras if you are in front of your computer, because this is going to be more interactive. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and I'm really excited to have this conversation and workshop with you today. Wow, this is just a topic that we should all spend more time on, and it's my privilege to spend some time with you in a workshop setting. So allow me to pull up this PowerPoint. Okay. Present. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen, please. Awesome. Cool. All right. So when we think of the 5 languages of appreciation, you may have heard of the 5 love languages, right? That might be more common. So we have the same concepts, but we're going to talk about it in the workplace and just life in general. So here's the agenda today. We're going to cover the basics. Oh, we got one thing in the chat. I can see your next slide. Ha! Well, there you go. There are my notes for the story. Okay. So there we go. We got that minimized. Is that better? In the chat box, shoot me a note. Awesome, cool. So we're going to cover the basics. We're going to go over the 3 parameters for an effective presentation. We're going to do some role play and then go through takeaways. So let's jump right in with the basics. As I mentioned, this is going to be more interactive. It's obviously harder virtually, but we're going to make it happen. So we will, if your video is on, just know that I'm going to call on you. And I believe that's going to be the most effective way that we can do this. So I'm going to go ahead and call on Sherry Washburn. Sherry, and I apologize ahead of time if I mess up anyone's name. Sherry, do you have any knowledge of the languages, or do you want to take a guess at what one of the languages might be?
Respect.
Respect. That's awesome. I would say that rolls up on top of all of them. So I'll give you the first one. And the first one is words of affirmation. And I'm going to call on Tony Dalham. Tony, you want to take a shot?
Add another gift or what?
Yes.
Like physical gift, like material gifts.
Yeah, tangible gifts. That is one of the 5 languages. Awesome. How about Jerry? Jerry Big? Well, Jerry might be frozen on my screen. Orville Reed. Do you know one of the languages? I can see you thinking.
For me, I think depending on the circumstance, a hug or a pat on the back or something.
Yes. Yes, that's awesome. It's physical touch. We'll combine that into physical touch. So we have physical touch, words of affirmation, and physical gifts, tangible gifts. How about Carrie Dostal? Carrie.
Acts of service.
Acts of service. That is another one as well. Acts of service. There's one more. Does anyone know who it is or what it is? If you do, go ahead and unmute yourself and take a shot.
Smile.
Smile is a great one. I'm going to put that in the same category as respect. The last one is actually quality time, spending quality time with someone. So I'm going to go through them. We have words of affirmation. We have quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and physical touch. Of these 5 languages, let's take a little bit to go through them. And I'm going to challenge the people who gave a suggestion to expand on it. So Orville, let's start with physical touch. And what do you think of when you think of physical touch in the workplace?
I recall going to a place to try out for a job, and the person who was in charge, the owner, she had workers, in a circle. And what she did to really console, because she didn't have the money to give the pay at that period to pay them. And she either held their hand or touched them on their backs or something. And somehow that helped keep them going. I didn't stay because that was not going to work for me, so I don't know if physical touch in the workplace, how that works, I'm not sure. I was thinking of it more from a perspective, like a personal thing, like you spoke about your girlfriend and something that you did, or a friend, but sometimes a pat on the back can actually help as a part of showing appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. So and you make up a good point that we should just go ahead and cover right now, Orville, and there's a difference between the 5 love languages and how you might want to feel loved versus how you want to feel appreciated, right? And there's totally bridges between the two. But overall, if you think of it, through research of Dr. Gary Chapman, who wrote the 5 love languages and the 5 appreciations in the workplace, the research that they found is that your 2 top qualities, your 2 top languages when it comes to love are generally one of those 2 will be the same in the workplace. So think about that with your own, whatever you think your top 2 languages are that you might identify with more, probably one of them will be the same and one of them will be different. So let's move on to the next one, and that is gifts. I can't remember who said gifts. Tony.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, our boss left packs of gum on all of our desks, and it was extra gum, and they said it was thank you for giving the extra effort during these tough pandemic times. So that was an example of a gift that happened in our workplace.
Absolutely. And Tony, go ahead while you have the floor. Think back to past times, whether it's the same employer or another employer. What other types of gifts have you received in the past in the workplace?
Well, I think this is part of it, that it's sometimes you get bonuses as a part of your compensation. So, and that's usually performance based. So I think that's kind of a reward for uh, doing good work in the workplace.
Absolutely. Who else could unmute your mic? Go ahead and pitch in other ideas that you've seen in the past.
Possibly a handwritten note.
A handwritten note. Yeah, I would say one way to take a gift to the next level is putting a handwritten note with it, right? And you could also argue that handwritten note might fall into the words of affirmation, but a lot of time there's an overlap between two. So a handwritten note is great. How about Laura? Laura, what type of gifts have you experienced in the workplace?
I had a boss when I lived in the Kansas City area that every Valentine's Day, you would come into work, there was a vase with one rose and a little box of chocolate. And it was for all of the employees. And there was probably 300 employees. That's a lot of employees. That's a lot of roses and a lot of chocolate to buy. And I was just so appreciative for Darcy and her efforts in saying thank you to each and every one of us for what we did. We knew it when we did something good and she'd say thank you, but to be acknowledged as a group for everyone, because not everyone is going to do something spectacular that gets that handshake or the pat on the back. It's those people that don't wish to advance. They're comfortable where they are. So when she did that to everybody, that showed me a true gift in the workplace. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. Laura, how long ago was that? How many years ago?
Let us see, 18 years ago?
18 years ago. And it still has that much of an impact on you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Let's go to words of affirmation. And can I go ahead and call on Lana Hansen? Lana, if you wouldn't mind unmuting your mic and sharing with us. Oh, that's just Lana's face. She tricked me. Can anyone else see Lana's little grid?
I'm here. I have to hold my tablet, and it's simpler not to.
Okay, Lana, will you share with us what you think of when you think of words of affirmation?
Somebody telling you something positive that you've done, or stressing one on a speech evaluation, for example, stressing the competencies that the person showed, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I'll point out there before we dive into it further is you did a great job of highlighting the specific competencies of the person rather than just the speech itself, right? It's easy to just say, you did a good job. It's different to focus on specific competencies. So that's a great point. Next, we go to quality time. Who can I call on? How about Ed Parker? Ed Parker, quality time. What do you think of with quality time in the workplace?
Well, one of the things a previous director of our company had was, I don't know how he was going to end up selecting the people, but you could go to lunch with him. And he had a lot of knowledge. You could pick his brain with things. So it was just an opportunity to sit down with the director, which is 2 levels above your station. So that's quite a significant amount of effort on his part, I think, for us.
Right. I think especially when you know maybe you perceive someone's time to be very valuable, it might be even more meaningful. Ed, what your personal experience of that, how did you take it?
I wasn't the one selected for that. So, yeah, time just when they come to sit with you and visit with you when it's out of the ordinary is quite significant. I remember years ago, I had a couple layers up director when the company did not have personal computers in the company yet. So this has been a few years ago. And I had kind of taken the initiative saying in the IT organization where we're on the mainframe, I took the initiative thinking, gee, we got to get into these. And I just, from showing that initiative, he tagged me as the person to pursue that in the infancy of the PCs in the workplace. So just feeding, I don't know, it's kind of a recognition, I guess, on his part.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ed. Now, let's flip it, right? Let's stay on quality time, but let's flip it. When you think of the workplace, please, someone unmute your mic when you're the type of person who wants to get in and out of work, right? You want to do your job, you care about the people you work with, but you don't really want to spend extra time at work. Does that resonate with anyone? No. No one? No one likes to get in and out of work? Okay, I see Susie. Let's go to Susie. We just have some hands raised. Actually, Sharon, go ahead. Sharon, give us your feedback.
I like to get in and out of work. I like to get in and out of meetings.
Yes.
When I go to a meeting, I do not like all the chitter chatter. And I'm facilitator of three of the meetings that we have at work. And it's been difficult I have a new boss and she's a talker. Well, cutting the boss off is something that I've really had to work at not doing. But still then I can tell her, we have 10 minutes left. And so she'll try to wrap it up, but sometimes it's really hard not to just say, well, we need to finish this conversation later. So I do not like to be sitting in meetings that have a lot of chatter. Does that kind of answer your question?
It does. And Sharon, if you could see all the smiles on people's faces that totally understood where you were coming from, it definitely resonates. I would guess, Sharon, that you might be someone who values acts of service. Am I right in thinking that? Yes, exactly. Time is very valuable to you. Go ahead.
Yes. Would going on a work trip or work fun day or something would that count as spending quality time?
Sure. I think of an easy way that works for me to comprehend quality time is quality conversation, right? Whether it's having a lunch, like Ed suggested, or whether it's going for a walk with a coworker or grabbing a coffee, are you able to have a quality conversation completely focused with that person? Someone who appreciates quality time will really value that one-on-one conversation. Now, the trick is other people who nodded your head to, yes, I like getting in and out of work. If you're a leader or if you're just being a friend to a coworker, you want to show appreciation. Someone like me, I want to get in and out too. So how do I give more of my time when I don't want to? But I know that the person that I want to show appreciation to needs to feel that quality time. And what I would suggest in this case is you set the stage, right? What is it going to take? If time is very important to you, let's be mindful of it. Rather than scheduling a lunch that is a full hour or maybe an hour and 15 minutes, what if we scheduled a morning coffee and set it for 30 minutes maximum? What if we scheduled a walk around a couple blocks? When I was at True North in Cedar Rapids, I really loved scheduling a one-on-one with someone and just walking along the river for 15 minutes. It was a great way to not feel overwhelmed by giving away too much of my time, but also fulfilled the need of the person who I wanted to show my appreciation to. Okay, one more, acts of service. When we think of acts of service, let's go with, is it Seiko von Baron? Did I get it right?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. What do you think of when you think of acts of service?
To me, act of service is something like, for example, like you are, head of some department, and then you wanted to show some like appreciation to the group. Then instead of purchasing like a dessert, maybe you would actually bake something to show that you actually thought about that people, and then make it and then bring it inside to share. I think that's kind of tell the story that this person actually spent some time to bring those desserts. So that's one thing that I could think about. Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I probably could have done a better job of structuring it, because when Seiko, I think that's one of the overlaps, right? Like it's definitely a physical gift, like bringing in food, but it's also an act of service, especially if it's a meal, right? Maybe it's covering breakfast for someone. Well, that's definitely an act of service. And then when you think of overall, I think the best way to think of act of service is someone saying, what can I do to help you? Right? It doesn't matter what your role is. You're going to have something, most likely, that someone can help you with, even if it's just brainstorming, right? When I think of, I work for True North Insurance, and when I'm working with an account manager, I'm in sales, and then there's an account manager. We have two different jobs. However, when I know that my account manager is overwhelmed and maybe 10 presentations need to be printed and binded and prepped, well, if I have 15 minutes of extra time, I'm going to offer if I can help with that, right? And in your workplaces or just your daily lives, think about how you might be able to help with someone. And a lot of times it's something that's not as skilled of work, right? I can't help my grandma knit. I don't know how to knit. I can't speed up the process of her blanket, but I can get her a cup of water so she doesn't have to get up when she needs it filled. So maybe there's something little you can do to help someone. Okay. I get excited, but we're on a time crunch, so we got to keep moving. Let's, for a moment, I want to call on Sarah Edwards. Sarah, when you think of your languages, which ones you identify the most with? Now let's flip it to what you identify the least with. Sarah, which language is that for you, the least?
When I think of different languages, the least one I identify with, the obvious ones are the different things like French and German, because I just don't speak them. But then there are other things like, different.
Well, Sarah, let me jump in. Sarah, let me jump in with the 5 languages of appreciation. When we think of physical gifts, acts of service, quality time, physical touch, which one of those is just not important to you at all?
Well, all of those are important.
Oh, that's a good point. Sometimes they all are. Well, how about, is there someone raise your hand or give me a hand clap or a thumbs up if this relates to you? Tammy, which language do you just not really identify very much with?
I would think physical touch would be on the bottom for me.
Sure. So I was just having a conversation with my sister-in-law upstairs. She's a dental hygienist. And I want us all to think about this, okay? I asked what her languages of appreciation were, and she said, oh, definitely words of affirmation and physical touch. And I said, what does physical touch mean to you in the workplace? And she said, well, something my mom always did for me as a dental hygienist was pat someone on the shoulder, right? Just like, hey, if you're going into a surgery, hey, it's going to be okay. Just a pat on the shoulder and maybe like a gentle squeeze. And maybe a squeeze is too much nowadays, because we all know that there's a lot that we have to be mindful of in today's world. And with that being said, I said, Holly, what if someone didn't like physical touch? And she said, well, I never really thought about it. And if we don't think about, then we're naturally going to give the language of appreciation that we want to receive, right? If what we want is physical touch, then we're going to naturally give a high five, give a fist bump, just stand in someone's physical presence. While for other people, it doesn't get the job done. They would rather just have words of encouragement, right? So in all of this, we have to be extremely mindful that we're not thinking about how we want to receive appreciation, but who the person is that is receiving it, what they want to feel, right? Because I want to give a high five because Orville did a good job, doesn't matter. It's not going to get the job done. I'm missing an opportunity if I give Orville a high five and he doesn't want to receive a high five. In my mind, I was a good job of being a leader by showing my appreciation. In Orville's mind, I was being creepy and now he's looking for a new job. It's funny and it's real, right? This is real, guys. So let's go into role play. And I want to call on Tammy. And Tammy, try again. What language do you identify with the most?
A toss between two of them, acts of service or receiving gifts. Acts of service.
Acts of service and receiving gifts. Great. Tammy, in this demonstration, you're going to be Tony's manager, okay? Leader, manager, however you want to view it. Tony reports to you, okay? Tony just did an awesome job planning. What did you just plan, Tony? What did you just do?
I just planned a training school.
Oh, cool. Tony just planned a training school, right? And Tammy, as his direct report, show him appreciation. However you want to.
Act of service. Shoot, I could do this more with a gift than I could with an act of service. Tony, you did such a fabulous job on doing that training. I would love to show you some more appreciation for doing that. And I arranged to have all the training materials printed and bound for you, so it would make it easier for you to do the training next time. I hope that's something that will help you out, and I can have somebody else do that for you, or if you want to do it yourself, that would be, you let me know what you would need done. That's all I got.
Tony, go ahead and respond.
Oh, thanks a lot. It's sometimes it's easier to do it myself, but I think having all of these materials being done for me, it's really going to make my job easier.
Okay, let's break that down. Tony, where does acts of service fall in your range?
Sometimes it's hard for me to figure this out, but I think it's pretty high.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. So that's good, right? Tammy, you hit on something that is high for him. What about words of affirmation, Tony?
If it's really heartfelt, it's good. But if it's not something I believe, then it might just make me feel worse. But if it's something that is really genuine, it can be very powerful. So.
Yes. Okay. Boom. Great point. We always need to be authentic, right? And if there's two things to jot down, to always make three things to jot down that you're always doing is one, being authentic, two, being specific We did notice that Tammy specifically said you did a great job setting up the training program. She didn't just say good job. She specifically said what you did a good job doing. Now, the third thing is to be mindful that you're not just doing your language of appreciation. So Tammy, I'm going to call you out because you naturally wanted to give an act of service because you like receiving acts of service, right? It's natural. So let's look at Tony. She doesn't know you, right? She doesn't know what kind of languages of appreciation she wants, but how could she find out, or let's actually flip it to Tammy. Tammy, how could you find out how you think Tony wants to feel appreciated?
I could point blank ask him, but I'm not sure I could get a response. I want to tell him that you did a really good job on this training. I want to show my appreciation and thanks for doing this. What above and beyond your normal pay or whatever could I do to let you know that? And maybe I could offer some suggestions.
Yes.
You know, an extra day's vacation, or I see somebody put, does he need more money for the next training budget? Sometimes it is hard to get a response from people what they truly want, but at least we've opened up some conversation there.
Yes, open up conversation. So one option is just have your whole team, your team of 5 or 6 people or 20 people at True North, the whole benefits. I made the whole benefits team do it. And that's 75 people. We just took a survey, right? It's 20 questions, and we can help each other understand how we want to feel appreciated. Because at the end of the day, it's going to lead to more productivity and more fun. We're going to have more fun working together if we feel more appreciated. So one is just have everyone take the survey. 2, Tammy, maybe that's not possible. And yes, give options, right? We can't leave it endless. Maybe Tony says he wants to be the first person to Mars. Well, you're never going to accomplish that in gift giving. So what if you said, hey, Tony, I noticed you like coffee. Your work ethic on this training program was phenomenal, and I want to show my appreciation. I was thinking maybe I buy you a gift card to the local coffee shop, or we just go get a cup of coffee, the 2 of us, so we can have a conversation. And then let him choose, right? Now you're putting the ball in his court. Even if there's 5, you almost always cover words of affirmation, whether you mean to or not. And now you have a 50-50 shot of hitting one of the ones that he identifies with. So I love your idea of giving options. Now, Tammy, when you're giving, or everyone, but in Tammy's example, when you give words of affirmation, it's generally better to focus on the person and their personal characteristics rather than what they did. What I mean by that is by saying, good job on this training program, Tony, will not be as valued as pointing out specific characteristics inside Tony. So praise for accomplishments, you nailed it. Affirmation of character, and praise for personality. Those are 3 tips when it comes to words of affirmation. Cool. Let's do one more of those examples. And let's do, Jerry, would you like to do a role play? He wants it. He's in. Jerry, and I saw a chat from Carrie, and we're going to do Carrie's example. So let's do Carrie and Jerry. Carrie is going to be the leader of Jerry, and Carrie wants to show appreciation. Jerry, what did you just accomplish that is so great? Oh, shoot. Jerry, we can't hear you. I'm sorry, Jerry. We're unable to hear you. I'm going to jump to the next person. Let's go Carrie and Seiko. Jerry, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry it didn't work. Carrie and Seiko. Carrie, you're the leader. And Seiko, in this example, so in the chat box, Carrie said, I have 3 staff members, 2 that love quality time, and I do one-on-one lunch with them both each month. The third one does not like it. Therefore, it's harder to find an equivalent thing for that person. So Seiko, you are that third person that Carrie is struggling to figure out how to show her appreciation for. Carrie, I want you to practice having a conversation with this person that you're just struggling to nail down how to show your encouragement.
All right. Hi, Seiko. I noticed that this is the 3rd month in the row that you turned in your reports in advance. And I am just really appreciative of that. That gives me plenty of time to review them before they go up to management team. And I was wondering if there's something that I could do to reward you with that.
Thank you, Carrie, for asking. And then first of all, acknowledging that I'm submitting report, 3 months in a row ahead of time. And I just appreciate that you take the time to acknowledge first, and then also ask how you like to show appreciation.
So do you think you would appreciate maybe a gift card to Starbucks? Or are you more of a Panera kind of girl?
Either way is great. Personally, I am probably the number one is the words of affirmation. So, just like you did, came to my office or something, and then just stopped by to tell me that in general, more than I would ask for. So you already did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, let's dive into that. Carrie, what do you think? Tell us your thoughts.
Well, I think it's hard when words of affirmation are enough for people, because like I said in my chat, I feel like I'm spending more time with the other 2, and I'm giving them more of myself and more things. So the third one, I feel like should I get something? Should I give her something? I recognize that you need to treat people differently depending on what they want, but that's hard for me as a manager to not be equal with everybody.
Yeah, that's an awesome point. And let's think about this before we come back to it. Laura gave us the awesome example of Valentine's Day. Every Valentine's Day, a vase and 1 rose, and she felt so appreciated that they would do that for the entire company. How do you think someone would feel on Valentine's Day if they just broke up with their partner, if they're divorced? Right? It's an awesome gesture. It's going to be super meaningful to the majority of people, but it's not always going to be the best for everyone. That's why we have to be different. And we come back to the root of being authentic, right? Carrie, you can say, Seiko, I know you don't enjoy lunch as much as the other 2, but I want to show my appreciation to you. And here are 2 ideas I have. And a lot of times, if you caught in Seiko's response, she said, you've already done enough. And just by you asking her, her smile got bigger, right? Did anyone else catch that? She appreciated the quality moment. She doesn't need the quality time. She just wanted the moment. And a lot of times that's enough to cover it. Now, what is very hard, Carrie, is the physical touch, right? What if someone wants physical touch and you don't like giving physical touch? Then, well, a fist bump, I mean, COVID aside, right? COVID's naturally going to be different. Maybe it's an elbow bump today. But what I've learned in learning from other people is that especially now during COVID, just a physical presence is very meaningful. What I mean by that, I've been working from home for 7 months. And if I could stand in the same room as one of my coworkers, it would mean a lot to me, right? On the flip side, some people are like, I'm never going back into the office. This is awesome, right? Orville's smiling. He's like, oh, we're soon tie on Zoom all the time. And so we have to balance this by trying to understand and paying attention, right? You noticed one time that Seiko had Panera bread. Well, if she ate it one time, she probably likes it. So that's a great thing. Get a notebook, jot down things, right? I have sticky notes of all my coworkers, and it's just like a piece of paper, like John, M&M's, peanut butter, Orville, Kit Kat. Like, I'm taking notes. If I see someone treating themselves to something, I'm already going to be a step ahead of them when it's time for me to show appreciation, right? So just being aware. Now, we only have a few minutes left. I hope you guys have learned some things, and I would like us to just kind of round robin, share something that you've taken away from this session. And Orville, I've been picking on you, so I'm going to start with you. Orville, what's one takeaway you've had today?
Okay. I got clarified in my mind the idea of physical touch as a means of appreciation in the workplace and what that could mean, even physical presence. I also like the fact, and the last part where you said, take notes, observe and take notes, like Orville, chocolate, and so on. That's brilliant, because I can use that in my other session that I talk about motivation, so you can find out how to show appreciation to different people in different ways.
Awesome, thank you. Vicky Feldman, what's one takeaway?
I guess one thing is I never thought about, I don't have a problem with physical touch. And, I like to give hugs and handshakes and stuff like that. Or even touch somebody on the shoulder and say, you did a great job on that, or whatever. I never think about, well, maybe that person doesn't like that. Maybe that's offensive to that person.
Yeah, that's what I struggle with the most too, Vicky.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go with Kayoko. Kayoko, what's one takeaway from today?
When we appreciate, it's better to be specific. Just you did a good job, or it is better to specific. And then it really shows appreciation, honest.
Yes, specific and honest. That comes back to the respect that we started the conversation with. Sherry Washburn.
It's it's affirmed something that I used to do. I'm retired. I used to do in the workplace when I was a supervisor. And that is, you don't have to do anything elaborate. I have been known to, well, let me back up. Because we get busy, we don't always remember to acknowledge other people. And I have been known to say very sincerely, and they knew it, say, have I thanked you for doing your job lately? And it made a difference. Mm-hmm. Just remembering to say that occasionally, even if specific is great. If I have a specific, I will, but sometimes, you're on your way out the door, you're thinking, oh my, I haven't said anything. I haven't acknowledged that they're every day doing their job. That's important.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Absolutely. And let me hit on challenges real quick as we wrap up. Challenges in showing appreciation. I'm going to read them off. 1, busyness. If that's a problem for you, prioritize. My suggestion, put a note on your calendar that reoccurs every quarter. Make sure you've done it. 2, it's not important. Well, you need to understand the power of feeling valued. 3, if you're overwhelmed in your own life, it's going to be harder for you to show appreciation. So acknowledge and validate their perspective. 4, structural and logistical issues, right? It's a pandemic. Maybe you're working from home or they're working from home, and you can't just walk around and do something that you've done in the past. In that case, Focus on how you can be intentional in showing your appreciation. Lastly, weirdness, right? And this is probably relative to you if physical touch was not so much me, right? And acknowledge it. Hey, I'm physical touch. I told you guys that. Jean Gwynn, if you know Jean Gwynn, she is not so much physical touch. And she'll say, Justin, this is really awkward for me, but I want to give you a hug because I'm so proud of you. And that made the world of difference to me. So if it's weird, acknowledge it. If it's hard for you, acknowledge it. People like Seiko in that example will appreciate it more. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you all have had your own takeaways and have a good rest of your day.